right, welcome back to Desk Talks. I'm Chase, the COO here at Dynamic Educational Solutions. I have here with me today Robert. He is the CEO of Dynamic Educational Solutions. Rob, how you doing, man?
I'm great, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great. Last week we started this conversation about transition. You want to run us a quick recap on that?
Yeah, last week, last week we talked more about Chase and I's personal transition from the military. And I think there were some good notes in there, but more specifically this time in the part two of this transition from service, I want to talk about lessons learned from Chase and I. So hopefully there can be some insights that everybody takes away from our conversation today.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, let's unpack this box. Talk about transitioning. Rob, I know whenever you and I started going over all the notes that we were going to take for this, we kept on coming back to this checklist.
Yeah.
And we kind of narrowed it down and said, if we had a golden checklist, what would that look like?
Well, Lee, when we talk about a checklist, right? I think you need to start with timeline, and we hit on that a little bit last week in part one here. But let's talk about that again real quick. Timeline for separation. Unless you're getting medically separated, you're going to know the day that you're going to leave service, right? Because you have a
Right.
service contract. Ideally, you begin your transition 18 months out, a year and a half out from the day that you're going to leave the military. You need to start your transition, and whenever you start that process, you can look at it, as like a checklist. You can write out the different areas that you need to hit before you transition from service. And I know that's something, what you were saying, Chase, you and I've kind of ideated around is this penultimate checklist, and it'll
Right.
be up on our website. If somebody wants to go and take a look, and you can customize and tweak that, but it'll cover things like, financial preparedness, moving household goods,
Yeah.
education, jobs, all of that will be encompassed in this checklist. And it's not the end all be all, but it's meant to give you a jumping off point, um, which I think is where our conversation should steer today. And so, number one on that checklist, uh, I'm looking at resume,
Yeah. Resumes are
resume building,
huge.
right?
Well, you haven't had to do one in what, at least 2 to 4 years, you would say? I mean, from your last enlistment, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the crazy thing. Whenever we're talking about this transition process, we're going to hit people who are, who've been in for 18 months, just over a year. And then we're going to
Yeah.
have individuals who listen to this, and they're going to be 20 plus years in. So you're hitting people at different times in life, but this checklist is relatively evergreen. It's for everyone. Everybody needs a resume, right? Because it doesn't matter how much time you spent in service. For a lot of people, this is the first career that they've ever had. Even if you didn't take it all the way to retirement, it's still a career. And so you're looking for your next career coming out of the military, you need that solid resume. And so inside of the checklist, we'll have things like resources for you. The thing that comes top of mind for me is Military One Source. Whenever it comes to building out a resume, they have phenomenal tools who can help, or that can help you with that, as well as individuals who can help you with that. And then we're happy to help you here at Desk. That's something that I did in a previous career, is resume writing. We can absolutely help with that.
Well, and a tool that helps you with that resume writing is you and I were kicking around for this. We kept on coming up with our I Love Me book.
Yeah. Yep.
And I remember you talking about the I Love Me book being so important.
It's huge. I mean, I didn't start mine. We were both NCOs. I didn't start mine
Right.
until I hit E5.
I
But
didn't
if
I didn't until I hit E4. And it was
you know, what I'm
almost too late.
that's a leadership thing though, right? Like your leadership will help you start that sooner or later. Um, but you really have to look at that I Love Me book as that's a working resume. That has all of your accomplishments, all your tasks, everything inside of that book. And so if there's people out there who are looking for a good starting point, start there.
Start pulling together all of your accomplishments that you have done, all your certifications. If you're still around the people who certified you, people who witnessed those certifications or did those trainings with you, it's a good time to start getting their contact information. Um,
For what?
you know, for building out that resume
For
for
building out
this
that resume.
transition.
Yeah, but getting references, right? That's another part of building a resume. I think a lot of people forget because you went through SFL TAP and what was the Marine Corps version of it of
But
TAP?
ACAP,
Yeah. Okay, so that was the Marine Corps version, ACAP.
I can't remember. I think it was
Steps and
ACAP.
taps or
It's been a
something
while.
like that,
Steps
right?
and taps. That's what it was.
Steps and
Steps
taps.
and taps.
Okay. Well, if you know
It's been
you're
a minute.
if you're a former Marine, don't hold our feet to the fire on this. But um, in that process, I don't ever recall. It's been a long time, but I don't ever recall them talking about putting together a reference list,
No,
people that an organization could reach out to and verify the information that's on your resume. That's vitally important. So that's a good note, Chase. A big part of your resume is building those connections and leaning on those connections. But you should notify those people ideally 18 months to a year out. Start leaning on those connections.
that's right. Speaking of leaning on connections, I know reaching out was a big one that we kept on circling around. At that 18-month to a year time frame, start making contacts, letting people know, wherever you are looking to go, whatever contacts you do have in the civilian sector, outside of your military bubble, start letting them know that you're looking at that transition, that you're coming up at the end of service, either you're, at whatever walk you are at. you know, they're going to ask you that question of where are you? Well, I'm about a year and a half. I'm about 18 months.
Yeah.
I'm about a year out. I'm about 6 months out. And that's whenever you're doing those check-ins and you're asking them specific questions like, what are you doing? You know,
Yes.
Reaching out to a high school buddy I know of mine saying, hey, what are you doing now? Well, hey, I'm working over at the Nissan plant, or hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing this now. And seeing if that's going to tie in. Well, even they might know somebody who knows somebody that those connections are made, and that's
Yeah.
super important.
Yeah, I mean, you're building opportunity for the future. You're not just, calling your buddy to catch up. Sure, you can do that, but you're also, building your next career opportunity potentially, and that's
With
huge.
just the conversation
With
of
just and it's
how
so
are you
simple.
doing? How's your family?
Well, and you have
How's
to do
work?
that. You have to do that, right? Because you know you were stationed whenever you were in the army. You were stationed up in New York. We're from Tennessee. Who in
Yep.
the world did you know up in New York, in New York
Not
State?
not many that were
Nobody.
that were nobody that was not
Right.
inside my military bubble, right?
There you go. And I don't know now. I'm sure there's some inside of that military bubble who could create a career for you, but typically you got to lean on those connections that you had before service or at, previous duty station, what have you. Like myself, I was up in Washington State. I didn't know anybody.
No.
I didn't spend enough time in Washington State to really know anybody outside of people on installation. So it's really important that you do a little bit of reach back, contact people, because you don't know everybody. Somebody can help you with an opportunity, but with those opportunities and while you're building those connections, hopefully that can help you discern a little bit. I want my next career in IT. I want my next career in human resources, whatever the case may be. And then you
I'm
start
so glad you brought that up. Yeah.
well, you start tailoring your resume to the career field that you want to be in. So your initial resume should be 3 to 5 pages long, I'm sure, for a lot of people. But whenever you submit that resume for your next career, it should be a page long, and it should be industry specific for where you want to be next to start that next career. Because you and I were talking about that in the build up to today. Uh, if you're just shooting out a resume and they all look the same to 100 different companies, that's almost useless.
Yep. You're throwing it against the wall and seeing what sticks. That's not how we operate. We're
No,
going to be strategic. We're going to be everything we do is with purpose.
Yep.
So
Right.
sitting down and having your resume floated out, making sure that each one of those resumes that you submit is tailored. I know you said yesterday 1,000 times, man, I wish everybody did a cover letter. Everybody needs to do a individualized cover letter every time. Your working resume should be 5 pages long, like you said. It should be 5 pages long. Yeah, but what you submit should be a page long.
Amen.
Your cover letter should be, appropriate to the job that you're applying for.
Amen. And going back to that, yes, your resume should be a page long, but having been in the position in previous careers and currently where I've had the opportunity to hire people and look at resumes across different industries, your resume should be one page, but it shouldn't be information overload for hiring managers and HR, the HR team. You should have information on there that is pertinent to the job you're applying.
Absolutely.
So if Chase is applying for an IT position here at Dynamic Educational Solutions, his resume shouldn't include the physical security that he did whenever he was on deployment in Afghanistan and how he's a weapons expert. That's awesome. And I'm appreciative of that, but it's not applicable, right? So you have to find a way whenever you're curating your resume for the specific jobs you're tailoring your resume, you have to translate our military jargon into normal civilian speak, if you will. You gotta, if you had a great example yesterday, Chase, what were you saying? You were talking about hip pocket training as an NCO.
Yeah, 350-1 training, being able to translate all those, the sharp classes or the classes that you taught on the fly. I know
Right.
what in my world, we call those hip pocket classes, right? Some people call them the 350-1 training. But being able to take those skills, they're all the same. So being able to prep to be able to teach those, you have to do the research, you have to do the prep, being prepared to be able to engage others. That's something that you could pull out and put on a resume.
So you're right. So with those hip pocket classes that you call them, give me an idea. I'm going to put you on the spot here for just a second. Give me an idea of, I'm an NCO. I'm an
Right.
E5 in the Army. My platoon leader just came down and told me I need to do some 350-1 training on Thursday at 1300. What's my first step? But translate that for me into my next civilian career. What do I put down on my resume?
Absolutely. So 350-1 training, first of all, anybody who doesn't know what that is, that was all of your sharp classes that you had to do, your sexual harassment classes. That was your mandatory classes that the military told you that you had to do. They have a standard. So the very first thing that we were taught to do is you go and read the standard to see where the goal is, and then you start preparing with your research. You're looking at your audience, so it's curtailed to who you're speaking to. And being able to translate that to a resume where every day it was mundane for you and I, right? That was just mundane. We knew that we had to have a hip pocket class ready to go at any point. Okay. Any point somebody could walk up and go, Sergeant Hurst, hip pocket class over, this area. And we had to be prepared to literally pull that class out of our pocket on the spot and be able to deliver that class. And that takes a lot of skills that we need to translate over to a resume, like being able to research. So being able to, research proficiently, being able to pass information at a high rate of information in a small amount of time. Those are things that you can add to your resume and can bolster your resume in ways that you did not think were possible before.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
where you think that going and teaching a class to 8 to 10 people, it's just normal, everyday, mundane things. Let me tell you, out here in the civilian sector, we do not do that. Okay. That is not a normal thing. People have what we call anxiety around speaking in front of other people.
Yep, they do. You're right. And, that's something here in our world now, here in the real world, those things are planned out. Those things are planned
Or,
out weeks or months in
or
advance.
post service. Yeah,
Yeah.
they are.
No, yeah. I say real world because out here you have freedom to do pretty much whatever you want to do.
That's fair.
But that's a really good point, and I think we all get lost in the fact that just like any job that you do, those little, you know, the things, the daily tasks that you accomplish every single day of the week, you don't think about that whenever you're writing your resume. But coming out of the military, more than likely, you're not going to transition from your military career and go straight into the same thing you were doing while you were in the military. It's going to be a little different. And so those hiring managers, they may not understand the military jargon. So you need to figure out a way to effectively communicate skill to task on your resume. The good news is, and I'm not trying to send everybody into a panic, we can help with that. There are other resources that I alluded to earlier, Military One Source. They can help you discern those things. All you got to do is reach out, and we're happy to help. I'm not saying we may not be for everybody, but we can certainly help. And if we're not, we'll get you connected to the right people whenever it comes to writing your resume.
Absolutely. Bringing back that idea of collaboration. That's what we do
Amen.
here at DES. Get you on down the road. So going back down that checklist, I mean, we talked about resume,
Yeah.
right? We talked about reaching out, to references and call,
Yep.
reaching back to the people that we knew prior to our service, right? Or the people that we met along the way,
Yep.
starting that process, right? So going a little bit further, getting those medical records, right? Getting those things lined up 6 months prior to separation of service, no matter what kind, right? Having those tough conversations about finances. Maybe we're not, like, I know you said this earlier, maybe you're not eating lobster every night. Maybe we're eating peanut butter and jellies, and eating a little bit of ramen and hot dogs. All right.
Yep.
But we're able to save a little money and get ready. Making sure that our home of record is where it needs to be, going through and making sure our paperwork is in order. Looking at schools, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're going to go, you got to make that determination 6 months out, in my opinion, whether you're going to go back into college and you're going to go that route, you're going to do a 4-year, 2-year institution, or you're going to go trades.
Yep.
Right. Because you got to make money. Okay. So how are you going to make your money? You're going to go back, you're going to do trades, you're going to go back and do the college thing. Once you make that decision, there's multiple rows to, multiple roads to hoe here. And the very first thing is you're our subject matter expert, is that GI Bill.
Sure, fair enough. And I could go on for hours and hours and hours talking about GI Bill. But what I heard you just say is, preparation breeds success, right?
Amen.
So we talk about 18 months transition from service. A lot of what you and I have already discussed and we'll discuss here in the next few minutes, that's all going to be covered in your ACAP process. But from my experience and your experience, ACAP is only a week long.
Yep.
And then there's no one else to help you with it. It's all very much so you driven. So without going into an incredible, excruciating amount of detail on the GI Bill, which I can, I will just say this. If you've never used your GI Bill before, activation of that GI Bill can take up to 6 months. You need to activate that GI Bill as soon as you can. And there's been changes in the GI Bill. I know a lot of, the not to be pejorative in any way, but the older crew may not realize this. There is no longer an end date on your GI. The post 9/11 GI Bill, for those of you who are still in service or separated post 2011, there is no more end date. You fall under the forever GI Bill. So you can activate your GI Bill right now and use it until it's gone. So it's not going to end after 15 years. So don't be afraid to activate your GI Bill.
So
Um,
when I activate, whenever you say activate my GI Bill,
yeah.
would it
Mhm.
be better to activate my GI Bill prior to separation of service?
Yeah, I would recommend that, especially if you're looking to go back to school, because there's a few hurdles that you have to cover, right? And
Right.
and looking at school, and I think about you and I, whenever we went back to school, it wasn't just the two of us. We had our families in
Right.
tow. And so if you can eliminate one additional barrier, and that's the financial piece ahead of time before making your decision on where you're going to go, having that GI Bill ready can help you plan your finances, understand out of pocket cost, help with housing expenses, so on and so forth. And
Absolutely.
I said it last week, and I'll say it again here. Uh, you need to be kind of interviewing different schools. Don't be afraid to reach out to the bursar's office or the registrar's office, ask question about tuitions, or I'm sorry, ask questions about tuition, and then uh, get in touch with any kind of VA office or Veterans Resource Office on campus. Utilize the GI Bill comparison tool, which is a phenomenal tool that the VA has. It's va.gov/GI Bill comparison tool. You can jump on there and look at institutions by zip code. So that way you can understand my housing allowance is going to be $2,200 a month. This is a public institution. My tuition is completely covered. Or this is a private institution. The GI Bill is only going to pay about $25,000 a year towards my tuition. I need to figure out my finances around that a little bit.
Yeah.
So
And that's like you said, that's a whole podcast
it is.
and
It
some.
is.
That's probably
It,
segments.
it is. It is. But the only thing that I'll say, we're here to help. The GI Bill is such a powerful tool that you
Amen.
paid
It's
for.
an amazing resource.
You not only did you pay for it monetarily for your first 18 months in service, you pay for it with your service, with your time and your family's time. Use that tool. And if you already have your degree and you're not planning on using your GI Bill while you are still on active duty, transfer that GI Bill to your dependents, even if it is just a day. Because what
Yes.
that will allow you to do after you separate from service is go online to Deers and move that allotment around instead of having to travel to a VA location and go through the whole process. So I'm sure we'll talk about that more on another podcast, but those are my tips and tricks for the GI Bill.
Absolutely.
Activate it and get it going for yourself.
Retirees, those who are at that retirement mark, one tip of advice that I'll give you on that as well is go ahead and get set up in the VA system while you're doing your separation. As you're doing your evaluations and stuff like that, go ahead and get on VA, get on all their websites. That will only help you at your next stop. Speaking of the next stop, and to the rest of you, as soon as you get to where your stop is on that checklist, is get to your local VA, get registered. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you want to use the VA. Okay. Rob and I will both tell you that whenever we both left service, we were both ready to hang up the uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Like get it away from me. Right. We were both a little bitter, the fact that we were having to figure out what we were going to do for the rest of our lives. So we were just a little not ready. So make sure that whenever talking to everybody, whenever you get out, post service, one of the first things that you do is you go down and get registered with the VA. It will take a little bit of time, but getting your first appointment should be a little bit faster. And if you do have bumps that come up in the road, down the road, the VA has resources that can help you tap into them, and they're not as pushy as you think they are. They're only going to be there if you want them. They're not going to call you
Yeah.
unless you call them.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point and something I never thought about whenever I transitioned. You probably know a little bit better than me. Can you visit like a VA hospital or a VA records? Typically, your VA records department is inside of a VA hospital, like here in Dallas. If I
That's
was still on,
correct.
if I'm still on active duty, can I start that process? Can I go to?
So, yes, I recommend if you are at your home of like where you're going to end up, because
Okay.
once you get into that system, the VA has different regions. And once you get into that system, the transfer of your files has gotten better. Can confirm. I came from Texas to Kansas City. The Dallas VA up to the Kansas City has got a lot better, but a lot of stuff did get lost in translation. So making sure that retirees can start getting involved whenever because they're going to have a continuation of care, right?
Mm.
Whenever you separate in any other way, you have a non-continuity of care, so you might go see a PCM that's outside of the network that the VA talks to, and now you have issues. Let's just say that you have something that's service connected that you didn't think to bring up before you left because you were just such in a hurry to run, to get out the door. Like your knee was just absolutely killing you every day. You toughed it out in 6 months post service. You can't get out of bed, right? And you need to go see a medical professional. Well, that's tied to your service. Being able to walk in and go see a VA is very important. Okay, because your PCM isn't going to be able to treat that the same way.
Yeah, I feel like that was very pointed, but a really good point.
Take your time.
Take your
Get your
time.
ducks in a row.
And self care is important, especially whenever you get out of the military, right? Like you and I found that to be true. Luckily, we had each other and we had our family, but that's not always the case for everybody. So if
Right,
you start that self care plan before you even get out, when it,
right.
because look, the reality is this for a lot of people, your support system as after you transition is going to slowly go away, just based off of the nature. If you're stationed in Fort Drum, New York, and you come all the way back down here to Texas, you may
Don't
not
know
have a
that many
support
people.
system.
Yep.
So you need to start that now. Start building that support system as best you can and lean on those resources. Good points, man. Really good point.
So to wrap this up, we understand that everybody's coming at this transition from different stages, but there are certain things that are universal, right? And
Yeah.
going down that checklist, everybody needs a good resume, right? Everybody needs to go check in with the VA. Everybody needs to activate their GI Bill before they leave service. Okay, if you can, all right. Everybody needs to hit and make and choose a lane, whether you are going to go back to trade school or you're going to go back to college, right? Am I missing anything else on here, Rob?
I don't think so, man. We did talk about a lot, and there's a lot more to cover. I don't want anybody to feel like this is the end all be all in this conversation.
It's
You
not.
know,
Reach
there,
out to us. We're excited. If you heard
amen.
something here today that you liked and we did not cover it enough, reach out to us either on our
Yep.
socials and just say, at the bare minimum, say, hey, I liked when you guys talked about this. Give me more. Right. And we can do
And
that. Jump on our Facebook, jump on our Insta, jump on our X, jump on Spotify. I don't know if you can leave comments on Spotify, but that'd be awesome.
I don't know if you
Jump
can. That would
over.
be cool.
That would be cool. Jump over on our website. Uh, Follow us. Sign up for our newsletter. Okay, shoot us an email. Let us know what's on your brain. Okay, we want to talk about it. Let us know what your concerns are. We want to help you through it.
Yeah, and one other thing with that engagement, we talked about it last week. We're trying to build a community and understanding Chase and I, we do have expertise here, but we don't know everything. So if you feel like you can bring value to everybody, to our brothers and sisters and their families going through this, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you on the podcast. It's just your voice So you don't
We
even have
want
to have your
as
camera
many
on.
voices as we can. Yep. No
Amen.
stage fright here. You can, we just need your name. And I mean, we're going to know who you are, but just your voice. It's okay.
That's right. Well, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for sharing today.
Well, that's all the time that we have for today here at Desk Talks. Thank you so much for being with us. Make sure that you go to our socials, like, share, subscribe to all of. We're here for all veterans, spouses, and family members. If you are one of those people, please reach out to us via our website or our social. We're here for you. If you're a business that is looking to get involved in this space, we want to have a conversation. We want to partner with you. With that being said, until next time.